Click. No, yeah.
Okay, recording has started.
Okay.
So we have to be a little better now, guys. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, Barbara.
That's a test method producer.
We're not doing each one, so I cannot explain right now.
I'm sorry.
I'll tell you.
Good morning. Good
morning.
Good morning.
I trust that everybody had a great week because it was your choice.
Yes. It sure
Everybody
was.
on this morning, boy. If you did, it's your fault, right?
Yes.
That's the other side of that coin.
We still don't have to respond. But always stops with me. But always stops with me.
I'm going to say, ooh, it was a bad week, but it was good.
You are. She is.
I think because I had coffee. I had stopped drinking coffee. This morning I made the mistake of getting coffee. So, well, it wasn't a mistake.
Okay.
Thank you, Sage.
So, are there any questions from last time?
I have one. I really do have one. Miss Barbara, going back to chapter 1 in Ruth,
Yes.
verse 17,
Yeah.
when Naomi and Ruth are talking about going back to Judah, Bethlehem, Judah, Naomi says in 17, you know, where you die, I'll die. Where you're buried, I'll be buried. Is she having a vision here, or is it like the Lord has spoken to her?
No.
Or she's just making a choice?
117?
Yes, ma'am.
I think that part of what Ruth has been doing is she's lived with Naomi as her mother-in-law in the household, and with Elimelech as her father-in-law in that same household for what? A
10,
number
12?
of years.
Okay.
And so she's seen them. She's seen the way she's seen how they worship. She's seen how they live. She's seen how they talk. And she sort of yearned for this God. It's a dual thing. In other words, not only does she hear from deep within her, because she is from the line of Lot, who knew the absolute God.
Right.
He was the brother of the nephew of Abraham. This yearning in her to know God is one thing, and so that's one thing. The other one is she was declaring, she was confessing right then and there that this is my choice. This is what I want to do. Stop urging me to leave you. I want to go.
So that would be analogous to today when we have this yearning and we go in search of, and we find something that sparks that light and we want to stay there.
That's right. And at that point, when you come to that awareness, a decision has to be made on your part,
Okay.
on my part, on everybody's part. Yeah.
So it's like us leaving religion
Yes.
and searching for truth, in pursuit of truth.
That's another analogy. Yes, ma'am.
What chapter are you
Heck if I know. Where did we stop? In Ruth 1?
We stopped
Yes.
it. Yeah. Well, didn't she meet Boaz or something? You were.
She started
Tread
down
on
Boaz and she was going so fast we said, okay,
Yeah,
this is
you
where
got
we're going
all
to
the
stop.
You got always
all right.
run.
All right.
Because Evelyn said we need to go home and read it.
All right.
Yeah, it's through 1, you started with 2.
Okay. Well, let me go back a little bit. Were there any questions about Lot and how Ruth came into being? You got to remember that Lot's father and Abraham were brothers, so they descended from the same line, lineage, if you will. And that's when Lot then, remember we said Lot left because of strife between their herdsmen. Lot took one area and Abraham took the other. And it wasn't until later on with Ruth and Boaz that it looked like their paths converged again spiritually in a sense. And one of the things that we didn't talk about last week was the fact that when Lot took that path, he knew the absolute God, but he didn't stay with Abraham, he was Abraham about it. And so it wasn't like he cleaved to God at that point. He wasn't attached to God. And so Sodom has so many distractions. You know how it is when we have so many distractions that it takes our focus away.
Yes.
Well, Lot knew the absolute God, but it wasn't like he lived it on a day-to-day basis. Lived what the experience of knowing God was on a day-to-day basis. And it was on down through the line when Ruth came back that she had that yearning and that urge to know that she knew that she knew. She wanted to know that she knew the true God. And so it's almost like, I got you. It was like Ruth sort of restored, in a sense, that lostness, my word, of Lot in Sodom. Lostness being not necessarily lost, but lost meaning he wasn't as attached to God. Yeah. Pardon?
Go ahead.
Okay. Any thought? Did that spark any thoughts for you?
Yes.
Okay.
It talks about Ruth and her Amalek being Ephrathites.
From that's where they lived, I think. Say again.
Ephrathites
reading
of
from?
Bethlehem, Judah, chapter 1, verse 2.
Yeah.
We talked about the ites representing some kind of characteristic
Fruitfulness.
of the Creator.
Fruitfulness. And it was really, thank you. It says, let's read that. The name of the man was Elimelech.
Mm-hmm.
Elimelech means my God is king.
Mm-hmm.
The name of his wife, Naomi. Naomi means what? Pleasant or something like my delight. Pleasantness. The name of his sons, Mahlon. Let me see if that's, no, Machlon, if you look at the way it's supposed to be pronounced, which means sickly, and Chilion, which means, and Kilion, it's pronounced that way, meaning pining. So, and the name of his two sons, blah, 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 they were Ephraimites of Bethlehem, Judah. So they descended from Ephraim, a tribe called Ephraim, an inhabitant of descendants of Ephraim, of Ephraim's of Bethlehem, Judah. And Bethlehem, Judah is house of bread.
Okay.
Praise of the house of bread.
Each of the ites represent a characteristic.
Yes.
Okay, so
This characteristic was fruitfulness.
fruitfulness. So that characteristic was meshing with the characteristics of the Moabites.
In a sense, yes.
Okay.
But the other thing is, remember, each of these is a representative of who we are. We have these aspects, these attributes in us as well.
Hold on, I gotta get there first. Where are you?
Close to your cursor.
That's what I'm looking for in here.
There it is at the corner, the right hand corner.
Sheldon knocking.
Well, he ought to know he can come on in the house.
Yeah.
Where is he?
Okay.
Sheldon?
I'm right here.
Oh, good morning.
Hey, Shell.
You testing my skills, huh?
Oh,
You're rather dark, sweetie, because of the light behind you.
I see that.
that's
Oh,
okay.
well, you want to be that? That's fine. The secret,
Oh,
A silhouette.
but you can see, I can hear you.
the secret Skyper, Sheldon.
Okay, other questions?
Harvest.
Yes.
Well,
Did you do some homework?
I got distracted. I had some distractions.
You need to come on back.
So,
Morning.
harvest. What does the harvest mean again?
Well, harvest means it means fruitfulness. It means gathering the grain. And if you remember, when we first started talking, Elimelech left because it said it was famine in the land. But that famine, that physical famine, also was a representative of the spiritual famine that was going on. It was around the time of the judges, and there were so many bad things going on during that period of the judges. So there was spiritual famine, and now this word harvest seems to speak to not only a physical prosperity, but a beginning spiritual prosperity again.
And this famine spiritually means what? Does it mean that
That they've turned away from the true God. That the Israelites in general were not worshiping or adhering to or obeying all of the commandments of the one true God.
so?
So they were living their own life in their own way.
That's what we do daily then, right?
Isn't that right?
Yeah. So we're in famine when we turn away from God.
We aren't being nourished when we do that. We are trying to nourish ourselves with air, not air, but we're just sucking and nothing's coming.
So that's why repentance is necessary.
And repenting means simply
To
turning
turn
around.
away. Well, to turn.
Mhm, to
Okay.
turn.
I want you to talk more about the famine as far as us not.
Being nourished.
Yes.
Well, we have been living in a continual type of famine. Maybe not. You got to understand that the famine may have processes. In other words, the locust may come and eat up a portion of my grain, but I may have some stored somewhere. Spiritual famine is like that. We may not be in total disconnection from the one true God, but at some point in time, if we progress on the same path, that famine becomes something that begins to gnaw at our gut, much like hunger does. It begins to eat away at us, much like hunger does. We begin to lose all of the things that made us who we are. Like you know, if I went on a diet, let's just say I went on a diet and I lost pounds, same kind of concept. With a famine, there is no food, so you're gonna go on a diet whether you want to or not. It's a forced kind of thing. So famine is a condition you don't want to be in. The famine also suggests that apart from God, you can't do anything about that. Apart from God's mercy, you cannot make the locusts go away. You cannot make the grain grow again. Because all of the conditions are such that, and there are a number of conditions that combine, are such that it's an external kind of thing that's occurring because of an internal kind of condition. Meaning, I've separated myself from the God of creation.
I think we have signposts
Yes, sir.
throughout generations to help us, or to kind of make an attempt to spur us to a realization that we're in a famine. Like when we make statements like, I was kept in the dark concerning that. It's simply saying, I didn't understand. The doctrine is something that you don't understand.
Mm-hmm.
Or light bulb moments. You know, things like that. I think those are guideposts in an attempt to remind us where we need to be in the source of our nourishment.
Gotcha, but in terms of the famine itself, we are self-restricting ourselves even now, because all that we learn, how much are we acting on? All of the Word of God that we know, how much do we really allow to become a part of our life, a living part of our life? Remember, Bethlehem was called the house of bread for a reason. And the issue is, it is the spiritual nourishment for the people.
Right.
And so even today, in our false sense of prosperity, in our false sense of, America is one of the quote-unquote richest countries in the world, or if not the richest country in the world, we still got people who are starving to death from a spiritual perspective. And for us, I got you from that. For us, we are not taking advantage of all that's available to us even now. And so in a sense, we are starving, in a sense, certain parts of ourselves, our spiritual selves remain.
I was going to say, so then, where Ruth and Naomi are, they've sojourned back to her home because she realizes that's where, even though there's a famine over the land, she knows that God hasn't left them there.
Well, she had heard that things were easing up.
And Boaz, in the sense that he realized that he could either follow his God or choose not to, because it seems like they were getting nourishment in spite of what was going on.
Somebody, but God provided for somebody over there after
Right.
Elimelech left.
Okay.
You're right. There are people who didn't leave. Moab was a country that was close by, but lots of people stayed there. Where did they get their provision? Perhaps they continued to trust.
But I'm thinking about the meaning of Moab and who Moab was. The son of Lot born through incest. And when it talks about going to the land of Moab, it's talking about the consciousness of Moab, or a Moabite consciousness, which is a consciousness of incest.
And also, the Moabites were a people who, remember we talked about last week, they had periods where they sacrificed babies to the gods. They served many gods, and they sacrificed whenever things went wrong in the country. They thought one of their gods was not pleased, and they'd sacrifice babies. They even marked children in advance. So you got a kid walking around whose family knew at some point in time this child could be sacrificed to the gods. So it was incest, it was all kinds of debauchery there.
But could it be that the reason that Moab was born from incest, from an incestuous relationship, and could it ever be that was the reason that he ended up, or that the consciousness got off track and felt that babies needed to be sacrificed?
Yes.
Because of that connection.
Yes.
On that level.
But you know what, too? That's why I see life is continual. It's a continual process. It's because, and I think about, because we have so much that we need to correct. And, go ahead. It's just a lot.
At some point in time, it is not God's desire that any of us should quote unquote perish.
Right.
We always have to, even if it's not in this embodiment.
I
Right.
feel like we are talking about America now.
What do you mean?
When we talk about the incestuous, in my mind, it's not, I don't think of it as so much a sexual thing as we think about ourselves as America being the powerhouse everywhere else. But yet we haven't we're abusing and misusing not only others but ourselves inside of this nation we call so great, but yet we have the very thing that we criticize in our own front yard, and we don't want to call it that. We don't want to call it terrorism. We don't really want to call it hunger or starvation or spiritual debauchery, whatever you want to call it. But I feel like this is a living analogy. Like we're in a living analogy of it right now. At least that's what's popped into my head.
We've said several times that the Bible is the story of us. The Bible is the story of us. And the issue is getting us to understand who we are. And that's why I said that we still have some partial famine in ourselves, because we are not partaking of all that's available to us as Elohim.
Right.
Yes, sir.
I don't know why it sparked it, but it caused me to think about incest. Incest in the physical plane is intercourse between two relatives or closely related people. Spiritual incest, would it not be man having intercourse with the earthly, spiritual, feminine in order to produce what he calls religion, as opposed to having intercourse with, being one with the Spirit in a true sense. Can you see that?
Yeah, I can.
Hey, everybody.
Yeah.
I think your video is frozen.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, tell the video for what operator what to do, please.
Don't actually know. You have a button that says turn on and turn off your video.
But
Down
you,
below your video.
I have a stop broadcasting, stop recording.
No,
No, on
that's
Skype.
Ustream, not
On
that.
Skype.
Not that.
On Skype.
on Skype.
On Skype.
That's okay. Go
we're
down
gonna
to your
talk-
camera.
Go to the camera.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
you can just hang up and we can just call back. It'll probably be easier and very quick.
No, see, you're showing, and you're
Yeah.
moving.
You're moving.
Yeah, Nick and I can see one another moving. We just don't see you moving.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay. So hang up, you're saying?
Just hang up and just call us right back. And that should.
He used to hang up in his face. Yeah, dog.
You just remember I'm new at this, okay?
She waited 10 times.
For all you that are listening, I am new at this. I apologize.
He said hang up, she hung up.
Hey, what he say? I don't think I was supposed to do it that fast.
Well, actually, doesn't everybody do that?
Now, where is? Oh,
Say,
there's.
when I'm talking to people
Yes,
on the
ma'am.
phone, I have one more thing to say, and they're done.
There
That's.
you go. Okay, answer, Rainy. There you go.
Okay, where's everybody else?
Click the phone.
Yeah, I called.
Uh-oh.
She learned. Go ahead, baby.
Sorry, Rania.
Go, or click voice
Like a
call.
video call?
Go to voice. Video call.
We're all gonna be good at
Video
this a
call
little bit, right there. Okay.
Are we moving? We're moving.
There you go.
There comes somebody.
Hello.
Oh yes, cool. All right, where's Rania? No. He's
Travis
on
gotta
there.
call you.
Hang on.
Hit phone, not
You
plug.
are- Your camera's not on.
Okay, Rania?
Was Ryan on?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hit the plus
Oh,
sign.
okay.
There you go.
Okay, Rainier's got.
Add people, right?
Is she trying to call you? Is that what the little flip is?
I think so. I can't see
Rania.
them.
That's
That's
it.
it.
That's it. That's Rainier.
See what happens?
Click it.
Add.
It click add. There you go.
Rania?
You stop. You can.
Where's the video
Okay.
crossed out?
Can y'all see us now, guys?
They shouldn't be able to because the video's crossed
Their
out.
video's not on yet.
Turn your video on.
Go. Click your video.
On the bottom, the camera, yeah.
There you go. Now.
You guys can see us now?
Yes.
There.
No?
You can't use your.
Where's Rania?
She gone.
She left.
There she is. Rania, can you see us?
I can hear you now.
Okay.
I can't speak.
Ooh.
Yeah.
All right.
We got all dressed up.
We still see.
You can see us?
No, we can't. See one another.
Well, just talk among yourselves.
That's all right. Y'all.
Sorry, we'll figure it out.
Yeah. Look at each other
Yeah, I mean.
and listen at us.
Uh-oh.
What'd you do?
I didn't do anything there. I'm over here over.
Just cancel the rating the call.
This is covering it. Click.
Nick Rainier and who's SJ's?
Click.
All three of them there.
Okay.
Okay. Okay.
One more.
Okay, we got one.
Okay.
We don't have
One
Nick.
more.
Nick,
Here, has he answered?
Hello?
Okay. He answered.
Okay,
can
good.
you see us?
He's coming.
It's coming.
Oh.
Hey, yeah, I can see you now.
Okay.
But we lost Ranger again, I guess.
Rainier?
My sound was doing something really strange and I couldn't see anything, but
Okay.
I can see now.
Okay.
We lost Ranger.
You can see clearly now that the rain is gone.
We're moving. There you go. Ooh.
The rain gone.
Sheldon, you have a nice view too.
Where are you, Sheldon?
Thank you.
Where are
Are
you,
you at the
Sheldon?
school library or something?
Something like that.
That's okay.
Oh,
We don't want to. He's
excuse
in a
us for
hotel room.
asking.
He's in a
us for
hotel
asking.
room. Don't worry, yeah. That's why he said something like that.
All right.
All right.
Okay, let's go to work.
I want to talk a little bit more about the famine that you asked the last question about. And in Deuteronomy 28, that's when the Lord did the blessings and cursing edict. And he said that if they would hear, if they would listen diligent to the voice of the Lord, observe and do all of those things in the commandments, that there were lots of blessings. Blessing the fields, blah, 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 blah. You would be fruitful, your barns would be filled, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But then later on it talked about, but if you don't do this,
Right.
this is what's going to happen in verse 15. If you ignore the Lord and not careful with His commandments, then 16, you're going to be cursed. And this is part of what was happening during the famine of the land that we were talking about.
Right.
They were having all of these things happen because they didn't do something that they were supposed to be doing in terms of listening to and obeying God. So 28 can give you really more specifics about what it means when you're cursed as a people or as a person. Okay, let me go back to Ruth. Other questions? Yes, no, yes, no.
No.
Okay.
Did it freeze again?
Mm-hmm. Nick's frozen. Ranger's gone.
If they can hear us, let's just keep going.
Okay.
Let's make them see if they can hear us. Let's just make.
Nick, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Yeah,
Sheldon too, right?
Nobody's moving.
Rainier?
Ranger's gone.
Rainier's gone.
I have, everything's fine with me.
You can see Rainier and Nick?
No, I can't see Rainy. I don't think she's on the call.
I don't think she's on.
Okay.
She was.
All right, we're gonna move on with Ruth. We're in Ruth 2.
Yeah, don't, if she's trying to get in, she can, call. So, yeah, don't worry about it.
Okay.
Well, better.
You'll just, if she calls in, just answer it.
This again.
Welcome back to your conference. Please enter your conference code now.
After Jones.
Where's Judge?
In the index.
It's near the
Can't,
front.
her page is different than mine.
Foundation.
Page 440. Somewhere around there.
Okay.
Can they hear us?
Yes.
Okay, good.
So then, Naomi then they went back to Bethlehem. Any other questions about going back to Bethlehem at this point? Okay. And so they went back to Bethlehem, and it talks about Naomi having a person by the name of Boaz from her husband's side of the family who was wealthy, prominent, and from the same clan of from the clan of Elimelech. That's from Elimelech's lineage, tribe or family. So Ruth said, "Okay, you know, God, we got to take care. I got to take care of my mother-in-law." I mean, she had that kind of attitude. here she is leaving the comfort of her country. It's been said that Ruth was a princess in her country. She left, but she gave that up to cleave to her mother-in-law, and in a sense, ultimately cleaving to God, the God she accepted. And so she got here. I have to prepare. I have to put food on the table in a sense. And so Ruth said, "Let me go to the field and let me glean among the grains." And in that time, you remember that in the Bible, they when they gleaned the fields, the corners of the fields they left a more whatever the grain is, so that the poor widows would have an opportunity to come and pick that and not starve. And so it was a sort of system of providing for those who did not have food.
Okay.
And so Naomi was going to go and do that. She says that, "And glean among the ears of grain after him in whose sight I shall find favor." So she went, and she did. She went after the reapers, or the harvesters, and she just happened to come to a field belonging to Boaz. And now, at the time, Naomi didn't know she was going to Boaz, her kinsman's field. By providence, that's where she ended up. So she started gleaning in his field. Boaz came and he said to the reapers, "Yahweh be with you." That says something about him, the kind of man, the greeting he used. And it implies that he had his priorities in order. That Yahweh was first, regardless. He understood the priorities. And at that moment, he said to his servants, "Who is that lady over there?" Over there. See over there. Who was gleaning. And they said that, she was the lady from Moabite. And they use this word Moabite several times. And there's a reasoning to that. Remember, we talked about the Moabites often were the enemies of Israel, of the Judeans. What do you call them?
Judeans.
Judeans. Thank you.
Okay.
Judeans.
Jews.
They were not. They were Judeans. They were enemies of the Judeans. And so for Elimelech to leave his country and then go settle in the land of quote unquote the enemy, and then come back, and now this Moabite, this woman, settles in the land of Judea. Again, that's kind of it says something that they're going to use this word several times. They want to make sure we know, and Boaz knows, she's not one of us. She's not really from here. She's a foreigner. All right, questions?
I think it was interesting that Naomi asked them to change her name and they didn't.
Oh, you went back. She said, "Call me bitter," but they did. But they continued to call her.
Yeah,
Naomi.
they ignored it. Yeah.
I follow you. They call me Mira. Call me Amara.
Mother.
You remember when she came back to the city? She said, "They said, oh, Naomi, could that be Naomi? Girl, I haven't seen you in 10 years." She says, "Call me Mara, for the Lord has visited me with bitterness." But they never called it. She was never referred to as Mara from that point on. And sometimes we see ourselves one way, and other people look beyond what it is we think we see, and see who we really are, that we can't even see. So the people never called her bitterness. Because if they had started calling her bitterness, she would have become bitter.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else, Pastor?
No.
All right. And so, she's caught the attention of the man who owns the fields. And, where are we? What? Oh, number 6, number 7. She says, "Please let me just gather some grain behind the reapers." And she continued. And the thing about Ruth is she worked from morning until night. She only had a little break. Her choice. Boaz had other young women out there gleaning too. And they took more time and had a leisurely lunch. Ruth was not about that. She had a mission, in a sense. And her mission was to put food on the table for herself and for her mother-in-law. And so she gleaned. So we could say she was a hard worker, right? Yes, no, yes, no.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I got a question.
Yeah.
So gleaning in the spiritual realm means what?
It's almost like when you said that, I thought about the treasure, except that this is there for the pickings. It's like the low fruit on the tree, in a sense. I can reach it, I can grasp it, and I can take it into myself. There are some spiritual low fruits also that we never, gleaning is taking the nourishment, taking the grain.
Getting what you can.
And yeah.
What's that?
Getting what you can.
Okay.
The leftovers.
Yeah.
You know how when the harvester comes along and picks everything,
Everything's
there's some
not,
stuff left.
Okay.
So they would get what's left.
So I think it's also interesting that there were females in the field.
and why do you think that is?
I think this is a manifestation of one of the beginnings of feminine subjugation.
Yeah.
You're saying the beginnings of it? Because this has
one
been...
of the
Oh,
beginnings.
okay, because I was going to say,
Yeah.
this has been a process
Right.
that has been going on for a long time,
There's
gleaning.
one of them that's
Okay, okay. Alrighty then. So, she asked, Ruth said, Boaz, can I glean? Boaz says in verse 8, listen carefully, my dear. Don't leave grain in another, don't go to another field. I want you to stay in my field. Don't go beyond the limits of my field. Stay within the boundaries of my field. And you can also go along beside my female workers, my other workers. In other words, instead of Ruth the Moabitess coming behind his female workers, because in a sense, that was her status as a servant. And if you look at the word here, I forget which one it was, but when she first said something, she was saying it from the perspective of a lower status servant. But now Boaz says, no, I want you to do it side by side the other female workers. So he's elevated her in a sense. And so she said, I want you to see where the men are harvesting. I'll tell the men to leave you alone. In other words, I'm not going to have men harassing you. I'm not going to have them hitting on you, is another way to say that as well.
they shouldn't touch
When you're thirsty, what? When you're thirsty, go to the water jars and drink some waters that the servers drop. In other words, she didn't have to worry about bringing her own. He's letting her partake of his resources that are available to his other female workers. So he's elevated her in a sense. Okay, she fell on her face and said, you're so kind and so attentive to me, even though I'm a foreigner.
You're getting into it, go on, girl.
even though I'm a foreigner, you paid attention to me, and I'm grateful for that. That's what she's saying.
Think about what she said. Think about what she said. If you want to put space between you and the female in your life, don't give him attention. But if you want,
that's true.
give her the attention not that she needs, but the attention that she deserves, and everything changes.
Say one more time.
Everything changes when she gets the attention she deserves.
Just by putting that space there.
No, that's not what I said.
That's why I asked you to say it again.
Okay.
Reduce the space
If
when
you
you pay
reduce the
attention.
space,
Okay,
if there's too much space between you paying her attention
okay.
and not, you don't get any play.
Ignoring her
Yeah.
is a big gap,
Yeah.
a big space.
You're right.
So, and that's a sense of the male being more concerned about her desires than he is about what he's gonna get from it. As a result of it. It's not about him, it's all about her. And that's how he played it.
Likewise.
Yeah.
Likewise, when we don't pay attention, it's not that our Creator is not there. He's attending to us, or it is attending to us all the time. It is us who put the space between when we don't attend to doing the commandments and living the way we're supposed to live and living like we believe who we are. It is us who create the space.
That goes back to you, what you said earlier about all that we know, we make an application of it in our lives. How much attention are we paying when we know what we are supposed to be doing and refuse? Yeah, is it not? It is not being inattentive. It's being attentive, but it resulted in you doing what you want to do.
It's
rebellion,
being
actually.
willful though. If I know to do it and I make the decision not to, and it's the right thing to do, that's willful, willfully.
Ignore.
Yeah.
Let's just say that one more time, because I want to be sure I got it.
If I know to do something which is right and I choose not to do it, I know that it's the right thing to do. It doesn't matter whether it's in my home or in my work area or wherever I am with my peers, in the social arena where I social. It doesn't matter if there's a thing and it is the right thing and I know it's the right thing to do and I choose not to do it. That's willfully being inattentive or willfully ignoring something.
And you'll feel the consequences of it. It comes so quickly.
Everything is a
But-
seed and always.
But sometimes there are consequences of doing the right thing.
Yeah.
Like the guy who did the 47% take thing. He did the right thing regardless of the consequences that he had to face. So,
The guy with the what?
you drink coffee too?
This is stop doing the thing.
The guy with
It's your fault.
the guy who did the make rum and tape. Yeah, the consequences about doing the right thing. So there are always there's always the opportunity for
Wait, Jimmy
consequences.
Carter's grandson or something.
The grandson
The grandson was the one who brought it to the paper guy.
Gotcha.
The guy who did it was the bartender.
Gotcha.
He's now
Coleman.
known.
He brought it to Coleman, yeah.
Okay, gotcha. Okay. Questions, comments at this point? So, Ruth says, I mean, it's almost like she's asking me, why are you paying attention? In a sense, why are you paying attention to me? She's grateful. Why are you so kind to me, man? Why are you being kind to me, man? I'm not from here. I'm a foreigner. So, what does Boaz say? I heard about you. I've been given a full report. I know what you've done. I know who your mother-in-law is. I know what you've done to help to care for your mother-in-law following the death of your husband. I know how you left your own father and mother and your own homeland. And I know how you came to live among people that you didn't even know previously. I know all about that. And then he says, may the Lord reward your efforts. He's prophesying here because you'll see later. What he says is, may your acts of kindness be repaid fully by the Lord God of Israel, from whom you have sought protection. So remember verse 12, because you will see that fulfilled later on in another book of Ruth. So he's saying, I know all about you, and you will be rewarded. and he starts that physical manifestation of that reward in the field. But what he didn't know, what he did not know in this verse was the impact of the spiritual manifestation of that reward generations down the line. Questions, comments? Okay, so she says, you are really kind to me. You really are. You really are kind to me. You've reassured me. You've encouraged me. You've encouraged me, your servant. Now, this use of servant is that, remember I told you there was when she first started talking, the way that the word servant was, I guess defined, was a lower type servant. Well, this is a different, if you look at this word servant, it's like she's been elevated, like I told you. So there were different levels of servants. So, later during the meal, Boaz told her to come and have some food, dip her bread in the vinegar, and she sat down beside the harvesters. You remember I told you that before she would reap from morning to sunset and only took a little time, a little space. And she was out there gathering while other people were still at lunch. And so now Boaz has said, come, I want you to eat with us. Handed her some roasted grain. Roasted grain. And she ate and she was full.
Laura,
And she saved some for Naomi.
is that the same as eating at the Lord's table?
Yeah, what you're seeing is a type of, someone have said a type of Christ.
Okay.
A foreshadowing of what's to come. Okay, so after she's had this nice roasted grain and she's been with the other harvesters and sat at the table and she got up to go back to work again, Boaz told his servants to let her gather grain even among the bundles. That means even among the bundles that have already been harvested, not the leftovers, but the bundles themselves. Don't chase her off. So Ruth is really being favored at this point. Boaz is showing kindness to her, and she's really being favored. So even though Ruth says she's a foreigner, and she, in her sense, initially, she really didn't deserve this favor. That's when she first used the word servant. I don't, that's the sense. She's being shown favor. Boaz told them, said to pull out some of the ears of the grain for her and drop them so that she can gather them. And when she gathers them, don't tell her not to gather them. In other words, he's really making provisions for her.
Mm-hmm.
That's not only Ruth working, but someone working on Ruth's behalf, is it not?
Yeah.
It's like us. That's not only us working as, but the Creator working on our behalf, in a sense. So, yeah.
Well, it doesn't seem to me like he's treating her like a queen. He's treating her like...
He calls her his daughter, in a sense.
Yeah, treating her like how a woman wants to be treated. Like a queen. You know?
Is there any woman in here who would want roasted grain?
I see a couple things in play.
Yes, sir.
I see the subjugation, but I also see the elevation of the Shekinah. And I think both of them are at work in this particular book. And it's about choices that the master makes to subjugate or to elevate. And in this instance, he has chosen to elevate based upon observation. And the other it's almost as if he paid no attention to the workers, the young women and the
It's
young
almost
men.
like he targeted, once he focused on her,
That's it. So,
and it was her obedience too. I mean, you know, he saw, in other words, what she did, what he saw and observed lined up with what he had heard
well,
about her.
what he saw and observed also lined up with what was to come. When it talks about the Shekinah being the comforter, you see, because she was bringing comfort to her mother-in-law at a time when she really didn't have to. She could have very well stayed because the husband was dead.
Yep.
So she had the right to return home. So it's I see a lot in this book or these chapters of verses we're reading that actually are parallel to what happened in the New Testament with Jesus.
Exactly. And
Is she also bringing comfort to Boaz?
she will.
In
I mean,
in
it's
a
almost
lot-
like, I'm serious, and it's almost like he has purpose.
Yes.
Right, and
He has
so
purpose.
so to me it seems like she's also being a comforter to him because he's now aligning himself with what he knows to be his right behavior that is correct. I'm not saying
That's what,
that
I'm sorry.
that he's aligning himself, like she's bringing him comfort in the sense that she's helping him to align what he supposedly believes of his God, but may not have been practicing.
And
I mean, I don't know that he wasn't.
and I kind of tend to agree with you because when he heard what this woman who was a foreigner does as a daughter-in-law of this Jewish woman, that she's taking care of her, you will see that later on they talk about 7 sons couldn't have taken care of Naomi as well as she was.
And it doesn't take place until they have totally disconnected from the males in their life.
But you got to remember the names of those males
That's right, and it's in the origin.
and the origin.
So it doesn't take place until,
But the origins were Elimelech, so you have to explain that.
Yeah.
okay.
The origin, these were Elimelech's son,
Elimelech means to, I can't
son of
remember.
God's my king.
And the origin, they were Moabites.
Well, no,
They
he married, Elimelech's wife was Naomi, who he brought with him.
Right.
So, but in a sense, they were Moabites because they were, well, no,
So they forsake their true God in option for the multi-gods.
yeah, they became, assimilated in a sense.
Into the Moabite culture.
Yeah.
So when that culture, the cultural influence was eliminated, then she moved into another consciousness. And the consciousness she moved into, she did it with her mother-in-law. So she moved into another consciousness with a more mature sense of femininity. And she nurtured it, which means that she saw something there that she could learn. So she, in nurturing it, she also grew herself. But it didn't happen until she came in contact with a male or the masculinity that respected the femininity in a different way than it had been respected in the past.
And the other thing I got you is that it's almost a mirror image of, usually what happens is when the males, that's why they call them, don't you mess with those Canaanite women and all those women. It's usually what happens when the males are attracted to and marry women outside of the lineage of the family, that those women also entice them and pull them away to serving the gods of the country. But Ruth was the opposite. She'd grown up with all these gods of the country. And she voluntarily chose to give it up when she came to live in the house of Naomi when she married the son. So the son got weaker and she got stronger in a sense, spiritually speaking. What you gonna say?
I was going to say, so then that's the example of the spiritual incest we're talking about. They left that to come back to what was spiritually correct as opposed to being incestuous.
Or you could say the sons of Naomi had spiritual incest in a sense.
Right.
when they took on.
Instead of living and remaining there, they chose to come out of it.
Yes, Naomi, that's right. Is anybody seeing this story a little bit different than you've seen it before?
I am.
Definitely.
Okay. Even if it's just one or two sentences, that's fine. You go back and read it again and see something else. Okay, so after, well, I'm on verse 17. I don't know where y'all are. She gathered that grain until evening. I mean, she's still working hard. And she had about 30 pounds of barley. Now, 30 pounds of barley was a lot. It was a huge amount of barley for one woman to gather in a single day. And it talks not only about her tenacity, but of Boaz's generosity. You see that?
But 30 is also 3.
Mm-hmm.
Remind us what 3 means again? Because I was going to ask.
Completeness.
Okay, that makes sense.
Fullness.
So within
she
the
got all
famine, the physical famine,
So-
spiritually she was not in a spiritual famine anymore.
No. Yeah, and the physical was a manifestation that spiritual was getting stronger and stronger.
Okay.
Yeah. She'd already made a profession. Don't make me leave you. I'm going to go where you are. Your people are going to be my people. I'm going to die where you die. And your God will be my God. She's already done all of that. And so now she's beginning to reap the benefits of that confession. So she had lots of barley. And she went to Naomi. She took it. And her mother-in-law asked her, how much did you get? And Ruth gave her also some of the roasted. You remember she didn't eat all her roasted barley. She took some to her mother-in-law. And so mother-in-law says, where'd you get all of this? Where were you working today? Where'd you gather all of this? And then here she is. She's beginning. This is the one who says, call me bitterness. Mm-hmm. Well, bitterness is not thinking about bitterness anymore. Because she said, may the one who noticed you, who took notice of you, be rewarded. So Ruth told her mother-in-law who it was, whose field she was working in. And here Naomi then blesses Yahweh. So bitterness is left in the dust. I mean, she's not thought about bitterness anymore. She said, blessed be he of Yahweh, who's not left his kindness, who's not left off his kindness to the living and to the dead. The man is a close relative of us, one of our near kinsmen. Wow, she says. Blessed be God that this happened. So Ruth said, Ruth told her more. She said, yep. Ruth the Moabite is, I'm getting myself confused. This man's a close relative. He is our guardian. It's the first time this has been in there. Sometimes that word guardian is interpreted as redeemer. He's our kinsman. He's a close kinsman. He is our redeemer. It's almost like she made the connection then. This man is going to be the one that's going to be important in our lives. And Naomi, I'm sure, was thinking about herself as a widow, but she was thinking about her daughter-in-law who's been true to her and faithful to her as well. He is our redeemer. He's our guardian. Yes, sir.
And the word they use there for man is ish.
I didn't even look up the word man.
It's ish. It's not the natural man. It's the spiritual. So now it's a play on words here where the understanding is being made. I mean, the connection is being made between what's happening in the physical and what's transpiring in the spiritual.
So not only has Naomi left that bitterness thing in the dust, she's beginning to speak the spiritual kinds of blessings that she was known to to do as Elimelech's wife. Because Elimelech was a man of standing in his community before that. Everybody knew him. And you know that because of how they treated and greeted Naomi when she came back after 10 years. After 10 years. And that 10, I'm sure, it has significance as well. I mean, it means law and responsibility, but after you've done things on your own in a certain way, meaning they were away in where is it? Moab. It's time to come back now. It's time to rejoin the clan. It's time to reconnect. It's time to be who you are without having to live in the midst of the enemy. So Ruth in verse 21 says, yeah, he said to me, you'll keep by my young men until they've ended all of the harvest and until they've finished gathering it. So Naomi says, okay, it is good, my daughter, that you go out with the female servants so that you won't be harmed, which could happen in another field. In other words, Boaz put her in the midst of his serving women. It's harder for someone to attack or to whatever. And he's already told his men, hands off. And so he surrounds Ruth, in a sense, with safety.
Put a hedge around
and security. Mm-hmm. In another field, she could have been accosted. She didn't have that protection. Mm-hmm. Now, what if Ruth has said, what if Ruth was greedy and said, well, you know what, if I got this much here, maybe I'll go down the road to the next field. I might get even more. And she would have taken herself out from this hedge of protection and made herself vulnerable to whatever. Yeah.
So what type of environment were they in? Were they in like
A farm.
It was
they on a
Boaz's
farm,
field.
but my thing is, what happened? Would they just rape women or something? What?
Not. Go ahead, Pat.
The culture thing, women and men were not supposed to be in close proximity to each other unless they were related. He actually said, don't touch her. He put it there so she would be touched. Like when Jesus was with the lady at the well, that was against everything in the culture for him to even be talking to her. So it was a separation between males and females. That's the environment that they were in. But we do this all the time. We're talking about leaving the protection, going into another consciousness. We do what's convenient. We think about what we have learned, what we understand about the Creator, but when it's convenient, then we revert to the religious stuff because it's convenient.
You're talking about the space too.
Yeah.
If she'd gone on down the road, how much space from Boaz's field would she have created?
And I was sharing with Nick that my desire is to talk about the difference between the mind and the spirit. And when you look at this from the perspective of her being, if she had gone into another consciousness, and how we do that ourselves, we have a tendency to move between the spiritual and the spirit and the mind, or because the mind, everything has to be logical. Everything has to be logical, everything has to be explained. But with the spirit, it doesn't. It is what it is. It exists, and you don't have to understand it to accept it.
And in the spirit, there are things that work on your behalf that you don't have to logically try to understand.
Right.
You just accept.
And what we
Yes.
mess up is we label it. I do believe when we start labeling things, putting a label on it.
Well, religion tells you to do that. You have to know everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, we try to box it up based on our limited understanding. Because that's what the label does. In the spirit, there are no labels that, but in the natural, our minds are so limited that we put the label on it and we live up only to that label when there was so much beyond that was available and is available to us.
That's one of the dangers of intellect. It can lead you further away, or it can bring you closer. Depends on how you deal with it.
So as I read this, I'm thinking about Psalms, 91? He that dwells in the secret place
Yeah.
of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. In a sense, Boaz was saying, you stay in these confines and you're going to be fine. You're going to be safe. You're going to be provided for. Your mother-in-law will be provided for.
Also, Barbara, it was limitless. You know, it looks as though there are borders, but the further you go, the further you see. And you begin to realize that there are no boundaries in terms of where you cannot go. It's what you do when you do go. What happens when you go? What's your mindset if you walk into that area? So, but when we, as you talk about put labels, that's setting boundaries. It's setting limitations. It makes us limited, and that in itself causes us to try to justify when we ignore or give little attention to the Creator and what He has taught us.
So Ruth continued to work beside Boaz's servants, gathering grain until the barley harvest. And then it says as well as the wheat harvest. So this, in other words, there were several seasons of harvest. The harvest time is around the time of the festivals also that the Jewish people celebrated. And it's a foreshadowing of things that occur with David, who is in the direct lineage of Ruth as well.
So was this around the festival, a particular festival?
I think the festival of the Passover was around this time.
Okay.
There were several around harvest time, because that was a joyous occasion for the people of God. And I should have looked up harvest, because I'm sure there's lots of significance around even the festivals and the fact that Ruth was there then and was able to partake of the harvest itself.
The primitive root for harvest, when you look at harvest, it says harvest, but the primitive root is to be short or impatient, be vexed, to be grieved. That's the primitive root of it.
To be what?
Vexed,
Impatient?
grieved, impatient, short.
Harvest?
And wheat simply says for flour and barley's meal.
Now put that together.
I don't know.
I think the wheat was a less significant bounty than barley, in a sense. I think the wheat was my word for like the poor man's
Spam. Y'all belong to spam.
Okay, in a sense.
So treat is less than spam.
I think so. But I'm sure there's significance there, because it says to me, even in the midst of all of this, that the harvest provided for all levels of people too.
Now this is a love story.
Who's in love with who?
It's the Creator. To me, it's us coming back to the Creator, loving Him, you know, seeing who we really are and seeing what's inside of what we are. Mm-hmm. It's a love story.
Well, and the issue with that, I think, is that when you look in the mirror, when you're in search of the Creator, you're actually looking in the mirror, and you don't recognize who you see. Because you have all these high things about who you are, and all you see is the mess that you've accumulated. And when you deal with that, that's when you begin to get a clarity as to who you are.
Chapter 3. So Naomi says, my daughter, shall I not seek rest for you that'll be well with you? And this word rest is more than just taking a break. It means a place, a covering for you, a place where you can be safe, a home for you in a sense. So it means all of those things. I need to find a home for you where you feel safe and secure. Now, Boaz is a close relative. So this is what I want you to do. Tonight when he's in there winnowing at the threshing floor, he's going to be winnowing tonight. He's going to be, I want you to bathe yourself, rub on some perfume oil, get dressed up, and I want you to go to the threshing floor. Now, this says several things. It puts Ruth on notice that your mourning time is over, because it was not uncommon. She's cleaving to Naomi. It was not uncommon for Jewish women to formally mourn 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
And people knew it because of the way they dressed. And so I don't know if this implies that she's putting on something, her church go to meeting clothes or whatever, to see Boaz, but it's officially saying whatever garb she was wearing, she's taking off, because it lets people know she's no longer, Boaz particularly, she's no longer in mourning.
Right.
So, and the other thing is, how does she know that where Boaz was going to be tonight? He's going to be winnowing barley. Naomi had been in the fields. How does she know? Well, Naomi knows the customs surrounding harvest. And she knows that Boaz is going to be there where his food is. He's going to be sleeping in the area. First of all, he doesn't want anybody taking any of it who shouldn't. But the other thing is that at night, where that part of the desert where they live, the winds blew, like the Santa Ana winds, they blow harshly. Well, in the midday, they kind of blow kind of harsh. But at night, they got gentle. And so when you winnow, when you throw the straw or the barley, throw it up in the air, that gentle wind just
Husk away.
sends the shaft. And then the food drops to the floor on the window of the threshing floor. So she knew this. She grew up with this. I got you. And so that's why she knew Boaz was going to be there. And she knew what he was going to be doing. Oh, what happened, Evelyn? Light bulb.
When God says, I'll do the separating.
Yeah.
I'll separate the wheat from the chaff.
Mm-hmm.
He was that wind. He's
that
the
same
wind that does the separating.
Spirit.
That's spirit.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That gentle breeze. Not the harsh one, because if it was too harsh, it would blow the food away with the shaft. That gentle breeze that just comes just before dusk. So she said, this is what I want you to do. That's where you're going to find him. All right? And lo and behold, that's where she found him.
Wait a minute.
Oh, I'm going too fast? All right.
When she told her to wash him on herself, but she made reference to him not as Boaz, but make not thyself known unto the man.
What verse?
3.
You see that?
I'm going to change something.
The last sentence.
Go back to.
Wow.
So what does that mean?
Ish.
Huh?
Oh, ish.
Ish.
Okay.
Ish. Reveal yourself to Ish. Don't reveal yourself to Ish until he's finished eating and drinking.
Ah. Eating and drinking. So, that smacks back to Lot, doesn't it? When those ladies got him a little high.
And go back to Noah. Everybody got to get drunk to sleep with, get something done.
No, I just
You gotta clean that up.
I did. You gotta get the man's drunk to get what you want. You know what I'm saying?
it may not be a bad thing.
It disinhibits him a little, enough. It didn't say he was drunk.
Yeah, it might very well be that all he's saying is that in this manifestation of him, he is more apt to deal with what he truly believes.
I mean,
Because
If his stomach's full?
when he
Well-
becomes vulnerable.
Okay.
well, what's produced in your body after you eat, and when you have alcohol, what is it said to do? It relaxes your inhibitions. So
Yes.
if you're driven by certain logical, rational, the male drive, I don't mean sexually, I mean whatever,
That too,
control,
though.
authority,
Really,
the whole
that too.
banana.
And-
Well, the whole package.
Yeah.
Right.
And this just relaxes that, right?
And he's more apt.
It's not stupid.
I mean, it was obvious that he wanted her from the way he was making for her, but he never approached her.
He was a man of integrity.
Right.
She was a woman of integrity.
And Naomi knew that he would never do that until he was relaxed or at a vulnerable moment. And when you read on, you're going to see how it transpired. He had slept it off
Sheldon has a
by the
point.
time he got there.
Yeah.
Sheldon's hand is up.
Sheldon?
Very red today.
The alcohol also, when you were talking about a second ago, the mind and the spiritual or the intellect, it takes more of the intellect away. So it kind of disarms intellect at a certain standpoint.
So the real man comes out.
Sometime.
Yeah, sometimes. I mean, basically whatever's in that, a lot of what's in that
That's
person's
inequality,
heart
yeah.
easily comes out. It's not calculated. So,
Yeah, you spill what's in your heart a lot easier because the
whatever that
disinhibition.
So 2020, and it's not the same thing.
Why am I
Well, that's how they came up with 2020.
Nick, you have
Okay,
something?
funny.
With all the stuff that's in that.
Just comment. Yeah, when you drink spirit, whatever spirits you are connected to flow through you more easily.
Wow.
So let's not drink any Mad
That's
Dog.
why they call it spirits.
Yeah.
The spirit store.
Bad dog.
Yeah, you act like a mad dog.
The name of it ought to say, stay away from me.
Hello? Absolute. Hello?
Yeah, you're absolutely connected to the spirit that dominates.
There you go.
But, yeah, I think Nick's point's good. It doesn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess I'm gonna take a trip to the liquor store and read all those labels and figure it out.
No, it's what's in the ball, baby, not what's outside.
That's right.
Wow.
Now, Pastor, I'm going to need some help with the next verse. Or Sheldon or Nick.
It's still what's in you.
Or someone in here who sees it. Because all of us have that opportunity, that capacity. She reminded him when he goes to sleep, pay attention to where he's going to lay his head, where he's going to lay down. Then go uncover his legs. This is the part. And lie down beside him. And then what she says, he will tell you he will tell you what you should do. In other words, she's just assuming that when she does all of this, Boaz is going to wake up or whatever and have a response. Okay? So, uncover his legs. Lots of translations here. It could mean his legs or his lower body.
Again, it could be low body at his feet, but when you look at the word down, it also means to have a sexual relationship.
When you look at the word which,
Down.
D-O-W-N,
Mm-hmm.
lie down. Well, let's see if that happened. I didn't see where they actually consummated a relationship, but I did see where he did awake and responded. Let's and maybe we'll get our answer by reading on. Let's go to any questions, other questions about verse 4, or any comments about verse 4. Verse 5, she said she'll do it, and then verse 6, she did it. That's she said I'll follow your instructions. She followed them.
Okay.
But there's a lesson in that though, y'all.
It is, yes.
It's very brief. We got it through it.
Sheldon.
The lesson is, I got you, Sheldon, when we're told what to do by our Creator, we have to agree to do it. We have to understand what it is, and we have to do it.
Well, do we have to understand?
No.
Well, you don't even have to understand.
If you know you're supposed to do it.
You have to understand what it is He's asking you to do and
Right,
do that.
But it's also related to what we talked about the last few weeks, and off and on, about not being concerned about the consequence.
Right. Right.
If
Yeah.
you have faith it's the right thing to do,
And you do it.
it's the natural, correct, whatever you want to call it, thing to do it.
I mean, because think about what's happening.
Got you,
here.
Sheldon.
I'm sorry, Sheldon. Go ahead. Huh? Think about what's happening.
I'm fine. Go ahead.
Okay.
Think about what's happening here. She it has no relationship to him whatsoever. It's unheard of for a female to approach a male in a seductive way unless she is considered a harlot.
Okay.
And Naomi, a woman of integrity, who understands very clearly the culture, is telling her how to approach him in a manner that would be unheard of under different circumstances. And obviously Naomi is familiar with what his response is going to be, because she says, just lie there and do what he says. Do as he instructs you. So, as Richard said, she did it without any regard for the consequences, because she knew the consequences could have been stoning.
So she told her what to do, she did it. And in the middle of the night, he was startled, it says. I don't know, something woke him. The spirit, probably.
The spirit of her presence.
And he turned over. And then that's when he saw her lying beside him.
Oh my goodness.
He said, whoa.
What have we here?
I think he knew she was coming. Some men just know something, just like we know.
Well, he
Go ahead
said,
on.
who are you? He asked her, who are you?
Careful.
Who are you? It didn't say he was.
You know how to dance.
Oh,
That's
he used the feminine. When he said, who are you? He used the feminine.
Which verse are you in?
I'm at 9.
No.
Of you knowing he knew it was a woman. And she told him she was Ruth, your servant. Marry your servant. You're the guardian. You're the guardian of the family interest. So Ruth was bold, very bold at this point. I'm your servant. Marry me.
All right now.
Marry me. Yes.
Well, at the end of, well, in my Bible, at the end of verse 8, it says, a woman lay at his feet. So is that...
And at mine, it says lying beside him. So, and feet, again, could mean genitals also.
Okay,
So it has varying potential meanings there.
okay.
The issue was she was laying somewhere that you wouldn't ordinarily lay, period,
And the word there is
given the
Isha.
culture.
It's Isha. The word there is Isha. It's not the natural.
It's Ish and Isha?
Yes, it's
Ah.
Ish and Isha.
Okay.
Yeah, for man and woman. So again, it's a play with the spiritual and the unnatural.
Okay, so it's some spiritual,
Whoa.
it's time for the
So-
spiritual marriage to occur here.
So, in order for the spiritual intimacy to take place, it has to first be manifested in the spirit. I mean, in the physical, apparently, because it didn't take place until she laid there in the physical.
What didn't take place till she laid there?
The
I need to be clear what
The
I
intimacy.
Okay.
Yeah, the intimacy. And I'm not talking.
Acting on
Yes.
what he had some thoughts in his head, I'm sure.
Right.
She had some in her head, I'm sure. So, okay.
Yeah.
So a marriage took place.
Yeah. I don't know whether marriage took place at this point or not. My point is this: she was in one place and he was in another.
Mm-hmm.
In the other realm, the spiritual could have transpired but it didn't. it had to take place with them being in proximity of each other in order for it to become a reality in the spiritual realm, or for them to become aware of that reality, or to bring something into the natural.
But wouldn't that be the marriage then?
I don't know what we're going to call it yet. I haven't read that far.
You don't want to label it yet.
I don't want to put limitations.
It's evolving as
Yeah.
we bleed.
One of the
You don't want to jump ahead, in other words.
But what it doesn't, to me, I'm not quite sure how to say it, so I haven't maybe a full idea in my head, but I think what you're alluding to is there isn't one way for this sort of union and connection and whatever to take place. It doesn't have to descend from a spiritual and be manifest in physical. It's a two-way communication.
Right.
So
That's what I'm
physical
talking
can
about.
prompt spiritual. It's just, and in reality,
That's what I'm trying to say.
in reality, I mean, Nick told me once about, people who are so studied, astute, whatever, connected, that they can practically have union, to say it politely, just by looking at each other, right? So, at some level, the distinction as to whether you're going from one to the other is blurred and merged. So that doesn't seem, you know what I'm trying to say? Because it's not you the body, you the spirit. One dies, one lives. It's transformation,
It's the flow.
Flow,
Yeah. Okay.
morph, whatever, right? So yeah.
So in verse 9, when he says, "Who are you?" and she said, "I'm Ruth, your servant." Remember I was telling you about this issue where the servants had two titles. This one, she uses the word Amma, a more elevated term for a female servant, than Shifka, which was what she used when she first referred to herself as a servant in 2:13, and when she first arrived in Moab.
Amma also means concubine.
Yeah,
So,
wife.
Yeah, wife.
So in other words, what she's doing here, she's acknowledged Boaz's kindness. She's using her own humility by using this term. She's still being humble in a sense. But the difference is she's now aware that Boaz is a kinsman. This is different. Is a close relative of her deceased husband, and she wants to challenge him to fulfill his obligation. So that's why she went to the next level and said, "Marry me. Put your cloak on me, and put your cloak over me." And cloak implies wings,
Covering.
protection, covering,
Yeah.
all of those
Does
things.
Boaz know this of her?
Know what of her? And so I can be clear.
If she knows that he's kin, does he or she?
Yeah, because before, when she talked to him
Okay.
earlier, and she had mentioned that you are the guardian.
Oh, so he did all he did because he knew his obligation. Is that right?
Go.
Sorry, I was just gonna say, it sounds like we're talking about the transmission of knowledge, or of the passing on of a spiritual tradition to a woman, which in that time would have been totally unheard of, and this is kind of how they're writing about it.
It's so
symbolically representing the fact that she was, especially when you say "put your cloak on me," talking about the transference of from one master to a student.
Well, it's interesting that you say that, because if you remember, Abraham bought knowledge of the absolute God and began to share that with the quote-unquote world. But when Abraham and Lot separated, and Abraham and Lot were from the lineage, from the same lineage, it's almost like when that Ruth and Boaz had to meet again, because one of the things that I found that was very interesting is all the women of importance in the Bible married from Lot's, I'm sorry, not Lot's line, from one of the brothers' lines. Like Rebecca was the daughter of the son Haran, who was Lot's sister. And if you look at Ruth, Ruth is from the lineage of Lot.
But you know what they're saying?
What?
They're gleaning. It comes in. They're gleaning.
Go.
Abraham had the full message. Lot didn't. He had bits and pieces of it.
Lot had lost some of that when he went to Sodom.
So when she began to glean, she began to pick up the pieces to put it back together.
Is that the
So she-
ripping of the veil?
You see what I'm talking about?
That's an
Uh-huh.
example.
Is that also like the tearing of the veil, like they're repairing the veil they tore?
Not yet.
Not yet? Okay.
They might be on the way to
But
retaliate.
I'm getting excited about this gleaning part. It's like the pieces are coming together again. And so it's almost like, it's like the women, like the men have the knowledge out there, but the women represented Bina, that understanding, that way of putting that
Wisdom?
knowledge
No,
into
men do.
everyday practice.
And the winnowing is all of those things that Lot had picked up in between what he learned from Abraham
Had to go.
had to go. So the Spirit had to remove that. That's the winnowing that was taking place.
Get rid of the confusion sort of thing.
Yeah, it was blown away. So
So you're saying the evolution, so to speak,
Say again?
the returning to wholeness is through an avenue of factions, fabrics, bits and pieces. It's a recollecting
Yep.
and then putting together, as opposed to the other root, which was already whole,
yeah,
Well, wouldn't that not also be
which
the
explains our lives. Really.
purpose of harvest?
We don't start out from the whole side. We start out from
well, Boaz had the whole, and she had the fragments. Because she was gleaning in his field, his consciousness.
But I don't, okay. Sorry,
So when-
I don't get the side that the men, although they were potentially or in concept, the pastors even nicked, but they had the awareness and whatever of truth, but I'm not sure they always
Oh, they did.
didn't have it. I mean, I'm not sure they always had it.
Well, I think part of what's being said here is that it's impossible for it to be actually transferred as a whole without the influence of the family.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Even though the men may have it
That's-
outright in public, if
Don't know
they
what to do.
were aware of what was actually going on, then they knew it couldn't happen without.
Without the woman.
Well,
They
look
were
at,
they were incomplete without the family.
Boaz needed Ruth.
Yeah.
Ruth
Yeah.
needed
right,
Boaz.
because look at what happened. He gave the whole bundle. Eventually, he gave the whole, which is the beginning of the transfers that Nick is making reference to.
But then you
It
say the
sounds like
seed
the
needed
latter to
woman.
me.
Yeah.
Huh?
So it takes two to tango.
There's two things that, one, it seems like that's that ladder that we talked about, that the reunion of wisdom with understanding, so that you can get the beauty. That's what it seems like with,
From a
This
spiritual
story.
perspective, it is a connection and a marriage of the sort from the spiritual perspective with knowledge and understanding.
And Naomi actually performed the marriage. Because she sent
Said the
her.
words. She did what?
She performed the marriage. Because she sent her. She told her what to do. The connection, I should say. Naomi.
Back to your question, Audrey. She had said to him, "You are the guardian of the family interest" in verse 9 earlier. So he could have known that, but sometimes when she's the Moabite woman, things just don't click.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was when she says, "You are the Redeemer," says, "Yes." I mean, when you just can't really put your finger on something, because you wouldn't have thought about me covering this Moabite woman. It's like it clicked then. So then what he says. He says, "May you be rewarded by the Lord, my dear. This act of devotion is greater than what you did before. You have not sought to marry one of the young men, rich or poor." In other words, she could have gone after the younger ones. What he's acknowledging is that she is trying to do it the Levirate way, in a sense, the within the family line, and because Boaz was no young thing. Ruth was, but Boaz was no young thing. So she could have gone after the handsome young guys. But that's not where her focus was.
Mhm.
That's not where her thinking was. That's not where her consciousness was. Follow what I'm saying?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
In other words, Orpah, who was her sister-in-law, focused on physical stuff and went back to her people. Ruth kept her focus on the spiritual.
So Oprah went back to religion,
Yeah, whatever.
and what's her name? Naomi pursued truth. Was pursuing truth.
And it's almost like a when you talk about twins in a sense, not necessarily just twin, but doubles. Orpah represented the physical or lower realm, and Ruth, with her decisions and her choices to follow Naomi, represented in a sense the spiritual upper realm. So that's another way to look at it too. And then you got another layer on top of that. Now that she's seen Boaz, that Boaz represents that feminine, masculine energy, and then Ruth, the feminine aspect of that.
Well, you know what? I'm not mad at Oprah because Oprah is me. Because there are times when I turn away.
Nobody's mad as
You know what I'm
we're just
saying?
making a statement.
Yeah, I can only talk about me.
We just saying that's consequences
Yeah.
to whatever you do.
I can only talk about me. But I'm just saying.
And when we look at it that way, that there are consequences to whatever decisions we make. You don't have to make a judgment. You simply, and the consequences can be good consequences or not so good at the moment. They just are.
Well, the thing is, somehow the Spirit will find us, but it's still our choice to make whether or not we're going to come along or go back wherever we were going.
Yep. So, in other words, this woman has attached herself to her mother-in-law, has worked for her mother-in-law and herself, and now it is willing to marry the Redeemer for the family's sake, for the spiritual family's sake, in a sense. You didn't marry one of the young men, whether rich or poor. You didn't choose to do that. And so, you remember when I said he blessed her in an earlier one of the earlier blessings. It was 12. He said, don't worry, I intend to do for you everything you propose. Everyone in the village knows you are a worthy woman. So he got beyond the culture of this is a Moabite at this time. Because the woman is now not just a Moabite. This is a spiritual part of the Judean people. She's one of them. Yes, Pastor.
He said when she says, I'll do whatever you tell me to do. He says, it doesn't matter what you say, I'm going to do it. And the reason I'm going to do it is because everyone knows that you're virtuous woman. Okay. That's no different than following the direction of the Shekinah. The Spirit. You know what you need to do, or saying that I'm going to do whatever the Spirit guides me to do, regardless of the consequences.
Sheldon's got a question.
Sheldon? Thank you.
Comment.
Yes, back I think it was in chapter 2 when she called him when Ruth was talking to Naomi, and she called him not only a kinsman but also saying that he was close kin. And looking at those words, they have a lot to do with dignity as well. And with all that she did as far as putting herself, for lack of better words, out there, because both of them were pretty much doing the same thing when we talk about a marriage, both of them completely open up their hearts to one another. They're completely concerned about the other person, if you notice that, and neither one of them are actually trying to take advantage or
each other.
trying to get something to gain amongst themselves. It's clearly about the other person in all of their interactions. So that spiritual type of marriage is taking place at that point. But it's just that when he was saying you're a very everyone knows that you're a very virtuous woman. There goes that dignity again that he is acknowledging her with. But remember, Naomi told her as well to do whatever he said. So both of them are definitely entrusting themselves with the other person.
Right. And so, what time is it?
10:10.
Well,
We have no clocks. We're in Vegas.
In the
no.
casino.
We're in the spiritual
The
Vegas.
teachers.
I don't know. Never mind.
Not a good analogy there.
No, it's not. We have no clocks.
Erase that.
I think
Well,
Barb is knowing.
we'll clean it up
She
like
wants to
this.
start something.
We can
No,
get back because we're
we're
just not
getting
being
ready to get into
distracted by
another
all that stuff.
section that
Section.
I'm not sure I want to
Go
open up
into?
today.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Because
There's some stuff in here.
it's on now.
And Pastor, you said something too that was, but you didn't finish. I think there was more to what you had said earlier.
I don't know what I said earlier. They really more. I agree with you, Lamar.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was that?
We're
They're gonna make us whole
Talking about
again.
doing what the Shekinah said?
Yes.
Following the direction of the Shekinah, regardless. See, this is it. I think Audrey touched it when she said that that we have a choice. We can follow what we hear, what we know we're supposed to do, or we don't have to. That's free will. Now, if we don't, then we end up at best as Oprah, whatever name his was, at best. At worst, we end up returning to the vomit. The dog returns to his vomit.
Wow.
Everything that was purged. What that's talking about? Everything that's
Turns it away.
everything
That is such a vivid analogy.
But that's in the scriptures.
Ooh.
It's talking about everything that you purged of before you came in. Now you're going right back to it.
So that's why we say there's nothing to go back to.
Yes, because you purged it.
Exactly.
Okay, you know
So
that's
what
what I
that's
can
what that
have.
means.
We need to stop there. That's
So
just
now
too
when
vivid.
you want to backslide, you remove
Ah.
Thanks, Barb.
Mm.
wow.
Backslide has a whole new definition. So that's why we use the word backslide, huh? Cover it up a little bit.
Yeah.
Whew. Let's peel that back.
What do you want?
Oh, come on.
Okay, that's it for today.
Oh, that's good.
But let's
Oh
finish
my
up. Let's
gosh.
what?
Listen, that just brings everything home for me just now. I'm sorry, but it real like
The vomit part.
she just said, I can only speak for me. That just really brings it like right here in your face. Like there's no room to move anywhere else now.
All right.
some
How
water.
many Ruths do we have in the house
All
today?
in the vomit.
Okay, remember that. Okay.
I'm being honest.
Ruth, Oprah.
You need license
Hold
plate.
on.
Boy.
Okay.
Lot.
Schizophrenic, huh? Multi-personality.
All right. Next week, hopefully, we'll finish and we'll put it all in perspective again, because all of this arose from incestuous kinds of relationships, and when, that's why it's very important for us even more not to judge, because we don't see the whole picture.
Yeah.
And I think that that's part of what this is saying to us, that whereas Ezra in his time was really cracking on the Jewish people, saying you don't marry into this and don't marry to that. Well, now we've got stories that, you know what, there are things that occur that are beyond our limited knowledge,
Right.
that the Creator is aware of, and when it lines itself up, who are we to judge that? So,
I think it's also something to note that most theologians totally discount Ruth, the book of Ruth, as being just a story that was written and nothing ever really happened. And now I can see why.
yep.
I would agree with you. You
No,
never
I can
hear
see-
about
I
Ruth
can see
being
the
talked
reason.
about.
What was that funeral,
Especially,
right?
especially if they get it.
Yeah, that's it, yeah.
'Cause now they want.
And I think that's one reason
They
why
didn't get it, they wouldn't know, but if they intuitively or however get it, it's like Catholic Church, they will not let go. They will never right themselves until they let go.
Speaking of the
And they
Catholic Church,
misinterpret it for.
in the Catholic
They have a
Church.
certain place.
You got
the
that?
Pope.
Yeah.
That's all part of keeping control.
Well,
So you wouldn't-
I came across an article, someone sent me an article rather, that dealt with the whole idea of the Pope being involved in the dirty war in Argentina. But I thought it was also significant, when I read that, what popped in my head was remembering that Argentina was one of the destinations for the Nazis that came through the Catholic Church. The other thing that popped in my head was, after Nick and I have been talking, was that the idea of his parents, both of his parents were Italian, and they migrated to Argentina. My question is, I wonder if they were a part of that Mussolini fascism thing, you know what I'm saying? That laid the groundwork or was the foundation for the Nazis to come in there.
Well, yeah, it was Italians and the Mussolini
Yes.
Italians and Nazis that went into
Went into Argentina.
Well, but that would be the generation.
Right, it definitely would be the generation, of course.
So
Yeah.
we have a lot, what you got going on
So
the other
that's-
side, huh?
So it's gonna be interesting to watch. Because this morning, what shocked me is that ABC News alluded to his involvement in the dirty war with the disappearance of some priests.
Yeah.
And the Catholic Church immediately, the Vatican immediately denied it and said that's, as a matter of fact, he hid a lot of people and kept them from death. But the problem is this, the trials are just started.
I was gonna say, yeah.
That's the key. The trials are just started. That's not coincidental.
Yeah, but there's a lot of conflict in there.
Yeah.
Because he also didn't speak for others whom he advised not to let go of their political activity and then didn't.
But then he blessed the man who was
So,
the guy who
I'm sure
pulled off the coup and killed all the people. He caused them to disappear anyway. He was shown blessing him.
What? But I thought also the other thing that struck me is that
So the German.
the USA backed this military.
Oh, of course.
And so I'm wondering if they think that you've got somebody in power in the Pope
Well,
palace that you can influence too.
the selection of the Pope is about as apolitical as the election on November 7th. It's about as apolitical as any election. That's good. It's no doubt in my mind that all this was taken into account because I don't care how much they say this is the first non-European Pope in 1,000 years. He's a European who lived in Argentina.
Yeah.
That's it.
I'd be interesting to hear, I can't remember the name of the guy who wrote a book called The Pope's War that's been interviewed, about how the church has been dominated by the Polish, German sort of fascist,
Right.
whatever you want to call it, neo-thinking view, and how he would then write and maybe even research that very link.
And that in itself, Richard, were, those countries in that portion of Europe were papal states anyway, at one time.
I agree with Ray's an interesting point. The guy's, what is he, 75? 76.
Yeah.
So we're, part of this, the complexity of this decision was it an effort to sort of create a new face when in fact, maybe in a more core substantive way, there's still a continuation of that view that the church seems to can't let go of, because how long is he going to be Pope?
Or is he going to be a distraction
I don't-
from the prevailing
Yeah. That's
issue
what I'm,
of what's going on with the
Well, particularly, yeah, that they found somebody who's very humble, outwardly, so he's an interesting,
yeah, until the onion
complex.
starts being peeled back.
complex thing. But
I mean, how clean can his hands be? A Jesuit. Come on, man.
say,
Jesuit. The Jesuits preceded the Nazis into
Yeah.
South America. He's a Jesuit. What'd you expect?
And the plot thickens, okay.
It's gonna be interesting to watch. I don't think that this Pope will be Pope a long time. I don't. I think it's gonna be very short-lived.
I thought they would choose somebody younger.
Well,
Yeah, but that's
You
why
could
I
poke
think,
for
that's why I
longer.
like Audrey's point, that maybe this, in a way, is purposeful to create a certain distraction,
Yeah.
Yes.
yeah.
while other things behind the scene
Yeah.
are resorted or something.
Yeah.
But then you question whether substantively there's a real struggle or even a serious effort to change the church, as opposed to, like, what do you hear about the Republicans? They want to attract minorities, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, but they won't let go of the fundamental things that makes them all run away. So they don't want to change
But
their
if it's a serious effort though, wouldn't you,
marketing more
wouldn't
than
you,
the substance
wouldn't
of
you
the message.
vet somebody who doesn't have all of this stuff readily in their background?
But who you go vet that don't if you're Cardinal?
Yeah. No,
I'm
especially
serious.
Yeah, you're
Because
a box of eggs already.
because the previous pope was the head of the Inquisition and blah 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 before he was bishop. Since with the Polish-German connection, there was an American bishop or somebody who said almost in tears, there is no bishop in the church, no cardinal in the church today that I respect.
And
They're all a
because
bunch
that
of
very thing.
deadheads. They've just been dumbed down to follow this ideology.
And if you vet them,
You know,
that's what
it's
you're gonna
such a
find.
parallel to the politics of the.
But see, this is the thing that people, I think we miss. It is impossible for the church to quote unquote change.
Yeah.
Because if it does, it's no longer the church. It is what it is. It is what it always has been from the inception. So it hasn't changed. It has become more acceptable because they put on a different face. Whenever you find somebody so holy that they seem to exude this, all this holy language, something wrong behind the scene. Something's going on. It's almost like, I think you protested too much.
Thanks.
Yes, something's going on. So I do believe that there's going to be much more to come out. You could believe it's not going to come out in the American press. You have to look at the European press to get it, because it's not, it ain't gonna happen here. Because I believe they want him. I believe that they wanted him because he was complicit in what they did in South America.
And yet at the same time, it has the face of the humble.
The humble yeah.
Caring for the poor.
Best way to keep a man slave, because he's not.
Watch what you see, not what you know.
We talking about the Republicans, what Donald Trump say. We got all these Europeans want to come in here, and you won't let them come, but you go get citizenship to these. Basically, what he's saying, leave the people color out of here, because they outnumber them, and they bring the people in from Europe. That was his speech. Yes.
It's so obvious.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm done.
All right.
So the shoes of the fisherman is still a time
Yep,
to look to.
I know. I have to go, everybody.
Okay.
Bye, Nick.
So,
Bye.
leave it early.
See
ya.
All
See ya.
done.
All right, bye, Phil.
All right. The truth of light that we are, and the light of truth that we are. Has us to know that the Shekinah will not lead us astray. Amen.
Amen. I need to see teachers for a moment. Hey, girl.